We carry massive amount of stress through our life. It's true that our neurons keep dying through our lifespan, but the amount of neural connection can actually multiply, and that's the magic of our brain. Here's the beautiful thing, the neuroplasticity, the ability of your brain to self-heal if you want to.
We easily track our steps, our sleep, and our heart rate. But some of the most critical data in our bodies has remained a complete mystery until now. He's a serial entrepreneur and inventor with over 300 patents who is fundamentally changing how we understand human performance. And he's on a mission to bring brain data into everyday life, helping individuals develop greater awareness and control over their mental state. We have the brilliant Antonio Forenza on the show.
I lost 40 pounds in 12 months. I got fit, but I was still stressed. Coming out of a 10-day silent meditation retreat, I got this idea, what if I could lose 40 pounds of stress?
How does the device measure stress?
So the underlying mechanism is...
We've had a lot of new listeners recently, which is super exciting. If you're one of them, welcome and thank you. Every week, we're bringing you the guests and the conversations that enable you to become the most extraordinary version of yourself. If that's what you're here for, I have a small favor to ask. If you could look down at your device right now and tap the follow button to follow the show, that'll make sure you never miss an episode. And that way we stay connected on this platform as well. It only takes a second. It's completely free to do. And it really helps a small team like ours reach the people who are also committed to performing at their best. Thank you so much. Now let's get into today's episode. When it comes to our well-being, Antonio, a lot of us, me included, are moving from a reactive to a more proactive type of care. And I think it's in a multitude of ways. So for those listening, how should we be thinking about our well-being? How should we be thinking about this to ensure that we, I guess, take hold of and grab hold of the opportunity to become the absolute best, greatest version of ourselves?
Yeah, that's definitely a trend that is happening. Like everybody's realizing that it doesn't make sense to wait until you're sick to do any type of intervention. What many people call medicine 3.0, it's all about preventive care instead of waiting until the end of your lifetime and extend your lifespan by a few years. Now you can actually take concrete action day by day and start developing these atomic habits that compounds over time. And so you can really increase your health span. So you can live the life of a 40-year-old when you're in your 80s. And so that applies, I think, on a very holistic way in any area of our well-being. So from cardiovascular health, metabolic health, and mental health, all three of them are key factors for our longevity. And so I personally start practicing metabolic health, tracking my metabolic health with continuous glucose monitoring, cardiovascular health and sleep with all these wearables, Aura and Whoop. And then I realized there was a missing part of it, and that's how I created AWEAR, and that's the mental health. Basically, having a proactive approach to mental health as well.
The Healthspan piece is a really important one to talk about because it's not just about extending your life, right? It's one, if you're sitting down, you can't even move, you can't even do things, or you're struggling mentally going into your latter years, or even in your earlier years, the quality of our lives really matters. Yeah. When it comes to from a Healthspan standpoint and making sure that we do that, there are different devices. We both got from an Aura Ring standpoint, for example. There's other things like Whoop and other devices that track certain mechanisms. It seems like AWEAR is doing something a little differently when it comes to the mental health. So what is it? How do we go about tracking that? And why is it important?
The technology is very different than all these other wearables. So the underlying technology here, it's PPG, basically measuring heart rate and heart rate variability.
Yeah, what does PPG stand for?
It's a very complex word.
PPG, what does it do though?
It's basically light. It emits lights, and through lights it can reflect from the skin, and then you get a measure of your heart rate, basically.
Yeah.
And then it's continuous glucose monitoring, which is also a different technology to track your glucose level, and so you get an idea about your metabolic health. And so none of these actually provide you much real-time insights about your mental well-being. They tell you maybe your physiological stress. So you go for a run, it tells you, okay, your body is under stress. But what about your mental stress? What about that? So that's what we do with AWEAR. So we developed this technology that it's a very old technology, it's EEG, electroencephalography. Yep. It's a 100-year-old technology that we are taking from a lab into a consumer product. So there's already been a lot of consumer neurotech devices. And what we're doing, we're making even more seamless, even smaller. So it's like the size. This is the size. The current size is really tiny. It's very discreet. Sits behind your ear, and basically continuously measures your brainwaves. And then through machine learning, we can detect your emotional states in real time and help you self-regulate. And why is that important? It's because we carry massive amount of stress throughout our life, right? And the reason why we are stressed is because we lose awareness. Otherwise, we will not get stressed, right? We get triggered. And those triggers is what create those stress responses. And so the more you accumulate these stress responses over the days, over the weeks, now becomes chronic stress, and then becomes, burnout, depression over a long term. And then, even longer term, you start seeing a lot of diseases, mental health diseases that are, the science start tracing back to chronic stress, autoimmune diseases. There is some correlation also with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. So what if you could prevent all that? What if you could tackle that upfront, do baby steps every day, and bring that awareness that you have been stressed in the moment? And so now you can self-regulate your emotions in the moment and start building that resilience muscle. And so that's what we do with AWEAR. When you get stressed, we have developed this closed loop where the wearable tracks your emotions, your emotional response, your stress response, and then nudges you to help you snap out in the moment from that stress response.
How does the device, and how in general, I guess, from a brainwave standpoint, can we actually measure stress? How does that happen?
Yeah, so the underlying mechanism is when you experience emotion, millions of neurons fire in your brain together. And so they generate this signal, this electrical signal, a tiny electrical signal called brainwaves that you can measure at the surface of your skull, basically. And so now there is a lot of things you can do with a signal, right? There's many applications to EEG, electroencephalography. Electroencephalography is this technology that measures the signal. And there is many different signals, and it just so turns out that when you experience high stress or this, what is called in neuroscience, stress arousal, that's the biomarkers that we're measuring. There's very specific fingerprints or biomarkers that we're measuring by applying machine learning to this signal, to the brainwaves, and we can uniquely identify these patterns. Now, EEG is used for many other applications. In fact, there is a lot of more application for mental health that it's in the future roadmap for our product. So we're really building a platform for tracking your mental health throughout your life. So for example, there is seizure, traumatic brain injury, stroke. There's a lot of other mental health conditions that can be detected also with EEG. But stress is the first one. The stress response is the first one that we're measuring.
Can you measure, when it comes to that stress response, the difference between a good type of stress or a stress that's maybe not that great for you, or too much of one thing?
Yeah, so there's another dimension of the affect, which is what we measure is the valence. So it can be good stress or bad stress. So it can be excitement, for example, that's positive valence. So it can be tension or anger, which is a negative valence.
And they measure differently in the brain when it comes to the brain waves?
So
what is the difference? I'm massively curious about this.
Well, there's a lot of signal processing involved and machine learning that you can apply. This is more specific in the algorithm itself and how you, like the signal is the same, but then you can apply different techniques to really detect the valence and the arousal of the affect.
Yeah. So once we have the detection, at this stage, it's the stress response and that stress arousal that occurs. What then happens? So, okay, the stress occurs. Is there in your case with this wearable, is there a notification that occurs? Yeah. And then how do we go about the nudges that are going to actually enable us to improve that?
Yeah, so that's a journey for our company. User experience is everything in the product we're building. It's still a beta, so we are at the very beginning of building this product. And in this first release, the nudge that we have is the phone vibrates, and so there is the closed loop where snaps you out of the fight or flight and reminds you breathe for 5 seconds, for example. So this user experience is going to evolve over time. And so the long-term vision of this product is really to have an AI coach that talks to you and you interact in a screenless experience.
Yep.
So knows your biomarkers in real time and can and help you and nudges you basically in the moment, so you can interact with it in day to day. It's not going to replace therapy. It's not going to replace life coaching. It's going to be just something in addition to that, right? There's something unique about the human experience that I think wearables will never give. But there is what's special, I think, about wearables is the ability to really act in the moment, and so help you bring you back into the awareness of the moment when you lose awareness because of this stress response.
I think the ability to be able to do something like that is how quickly can you share that notification, for example, the vibration. So I guess how quickly is it possible, whether it's with yours right now, and what's the potential future case for that? Because I just think about myself, let's say, with this podcast, we find out that one of the hard drives has failed, or a camera has stopped working, for example, or something like that. My stress level is probably going to go through the roof, right? Brittany over here, her stress level is probably going to go through the roof even more. And Novak Djokovic talks about this. I've shared this on the podcast a number of times, and I'm a massive fan of his, especially when it comes to his mental toughness. Mm-hmm. He talks about the mind is a traveler. It goes into the past. It goes into the future. You can dwell on the past, right? Because it can be a good thing to go into the past, and it can be a good thing to go into the future. You can learn from your mistakes, and you can plan for your future, or you can dwell on what has happened and worry about the future. And if that's the case, depression lives in the past, anxiety tends to live in the future, because again, we're depressed because things haven't worked out the way that we thought they would, or we're anxious because we're worried about what's going to come next. And so with that, he shares the key to mental toughness isn't whether you go into the past or go into the future. You're going to go there. The key to mental toughness is how quickly can you bring it back. Yeah. And for him, he has to, when it comes to tennis, has to be able to come back to that moment as soon as he gets to the back of the tennis court, ideally before then, right? He has to reset, has to get back to a neutral space, that awareness, and come back into the present moment to be able to then execute the next shot and not be impacted or influenced by the previous mistake that was made, for example. And so what is the potential and what is the ability right now with the product, and the potential in the future when we notice and measure the brainwave, to that ability to be able to then in the moment say, hey, take a deep breath. Yeah. So I think that was what I'd probably need in that moment. So take a deep breath. Yeah. And exactly. and let's go from here, something like that.
Yeah, totally. And that's exactly the point of this product, this technology is really, first of all, it's you get a measure of your emotional state every second. That's what's really phenomenal.
Like once a second?
Yeah, once a second. That's what's really phenomenal about EEG. It's like the time resolution is incredible. Yeah. And so you can get a lot of information, like many other technology, like even PPG or HRV basically, or cortisol measurements. Like they're much more like long-term stress. This is very in the moment stress. So you get a very precise information about your emotional states in the moment. So that allows you to do emotional self-regulation. That's why, like, for example, neurofeedback is a very popular technology, has been out for decades and uses the EEG signal for rewiring your brain through sound or video. And so that's why it's a very powerful technology, EEG. What that does to your brain is exactly what you're saying. It's basically rewiring your brain in the moment. And the reason why we get triggered, it's because, of course, traumas that we bring mainly from our childhood, right? So we, first 10 years of our life is where we intake massive amount of traumas, either we are aware or not, but we all have those, right? And our prefrontal cortex is not fully formed. We're the slowest species on earth to form our brain, fully form our brain takes 25 years. 1/4 of our life, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. And of course, it's the prefrontal cortex that helps us self-regulate. And so we take all these traumas that show up in life in the form of stressors, right? And animals have the same response. They do have the fight or flight, but what's the difference between humans and animals is the fact that we associate meanings to those traumas, to those traumatic memories that pop up in a day-to-day life. And so, like you're saying, we dwell in the past, so we get anxious. Those are basically fear response, threat response to events that look like some traumatic event that we had in the past. And so the way to break this cycle is to basically label your emotions in the moment. That's what cognitive behavioral therapy is, the foundation of cognitive behavioral therapy. So that's the foundation of this technology, this product as well. So if you're able to recognize and train your brain to recognize that you're in fight or flight, now you're brought awareness to the fight or flight and response. And so you can be present. You don't need to spiral down. And I agree with you. Athletes are an incredible example. They're my inspiration. Basketball players, tennis players, their ability to really fall and stand up again is, I think they basically have debugged the bug that we have in our brain of associating meanings to our traumatic memories.
Can we measure at the moment the different neurochemicals that are being released in the brain, like the cortisol, the dopamine, the different pieces that the serotonin, different, like from an endorphin standpoint, these different things that make up our mental well-being, our emotional well-being. Is that measured in the brainwaves, or is there going to be a way, or is there a way now where we can potentially measure that release of dopamine, that release of cortisol, that release of insert chemical here? Is there a way to do that?
Yes, so there is some level of correlation. So we're not measuring exactly the release of serotonin when the app tells you you're calm, or release of noradrenaline or cortisol when it says you're in an alert state or in an arousal state, but they are very correlated. So basically, when you're in a calm state, your brain releases serotonin and certain frequencies. You're more in, say, in the alpha state.
How correlated is that?
Yeah, so there is direct correlation with that.
There is there?
The release of neurotransmitters with the frequencies, with the fingerprints that are measured in your brain, and so you have all the different bands of brainwaves, and so you can basically understand based on those signals in the frequency and time domain, understand what your emotional states are.
What are the risks when it comes to privacy? If we were to, with these devices, for example, all of a sudden your workplace requires you to wear this device, what are the potential downsides? What are we looking at, and how are you thinking about those?
Yeah, so privacy is the number one priority for us, for our customers, like any other wearable. Aura, Whoop, they take privacy very seriously, and we do the same thing. We're never going to release to companies unless there is a specific project where also the individual person wants to release their own data. And many people, they do, or there is specific use cases where the person wants to share their own data, say with their doctor, for example. So the doctor, they can have a much better picture of what's going on within their general health. There are specific policies put in place. Now, it's still very much unregulated when it comes to neural data. When it comes to HRV, heart rate, there's a lot of regulation for the last 10, 15 years because they are much older technology. Neural data is much newer. So there's still regulation being put in place in specific states. Texas was one of the first, along with California, Colorado, Washington, Illinois. At the federal level, they're still in the form of bills. So they're still regulated in the form of bills. And basically, the point is data must be encrypted end to end. It needs to be de-identified. So when you join our app, we have no idea who you are. We see your data, your biomarkers, but we have no idea. We don't even ask you your name in our app. It's completely de-identified data. So we're very strict with those rules. So the rules at the government level are still work in progress. In some states, they've already passed some regulations. And so we looked at all those regulations, and we have made our privacy policy and our platform very future-proof. We're following those guidelines very, very closely and try to implement in real time into our platform.
Are you at a point now where you're generating certain results that you're able to measure as to, okay, those nudges that enable for lowering of stress, for example, better mental health outcomes?
So yeah, we are, now that we have a lot of beta testers, we are growing our beta testers. So it's been a learning curve for us too.
Right.
Is the last couple of months we have been on the market, and so we have lots of people. It's growing really fast actually. People are helping us. Beta alpha tester first, and then beta tester helping us improving the user experience. We listen to them. And so it's part of the progress of building a product. We've also been collaborating with some universities, Stanford Medicine, specifically for the last 14 months. They've been using AWEAR to measure specific mental health conditions. So there's been a lot of validation being done at Stanford. More recently, UCSF as well. We have 2 projects with UCSF. One on psychedelics for research purposes for mental health, and the other one more specifically on the emotions, tracking emotions with EEG. So there's been a lot of validation been done in the academia, and also we have also ongoing pilots with different longevity groups. So we are basically discovering a lot of new use cases, practical use cases beyond the stress itself.
The psychedelic one's interesting. So are you measuring the brainwaves that are going on when somebody's going through a certain psychedelic experience?
Exactly.
And what kinds of psychedelics?
They're trying different compounds.
Are they? Yeah.
In that case, we basically provide the platform, and so they can analyze the data before, during, and after a psychedelics experience.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think the interesting thing with that would be, okay, after that psychedelic experience and then being able to measure again ongoing so that you can get some after effects, because again, lots of studies are showing now that the long-term benefits of certain psychedelic therapies is quite compelling, which is incredibly exciting. So how often should we have these devices on versus just allowing ourselves to be?
So I think the nice thing of these wearables is that, they're very discreet. You wear them continuously all the time, and then you forget about it. I think that's what's really unique about wearables. And that was our journey. We started with a completely different form factor, and we realized we had to come up with something that you wear it and you forget about it.
What did you start with?
Oh, it was a baseball cap first. And it was a headband. There's many headbands out there. Yeah. And then we interview a lot of wearable users, and we realized that being discreet and stylish had to be something that it was essential. So it was an iterative process. It was a long journey for us to really keep miniaturizing the technology in a way that would fit a form factor that would be discreet. And so once it becomes discreet and you wear it and you forget about it, I barely ever think that I'm wearing these wearables, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
and so they just keep measuring your biomarkers, and then you can look back. And so that's the nice thing. They are screenless. Some of them, they do have a screen, some watches, but many wearables are just screenless, so they don't distract your day-to-day. They don't interrupt your day-to-day. Right, and then you can always go and look back. I think there is massive values in collecting continuous data. For example, with the Oura Ring, I go sometimes, especially when I travel, my sleeping patterns are kind of messed up, especially when there is a time difference. Yeah. And so just bringing that awareness into and I don't watch the app all the time, right? So whenever I need it, I know the data is there. And so I can start correlating things, and I can start adjusting my habits to improve my sleep, or adjust my stress level in the case of AWEAR.
Yeah, having data to look back on, I think, is incredibly valuable. 2 examples for me personally. One, last year experienced a pretty solid amount of burnout. I wasn't getting enough sleep, and then just that mixed with a grueling schedule, it wasn't a good outcome, partway through the year. This year, sleep has been a major focus, and I'm sitting about 30 minutes more per night of sleep quantity. And I'd say my sleep quality has gone up as well. And that's, certain sleep hygiene, certain sleep practices before bed, and making sure that we're getting to bed nice and early. My wife and I are fairly similar like that. I'm usually asleep a little bit earlier because I get up somewhere between 4 and 5 a.m. and just wake up at that time, because it's just how my body clock really works. But the other one doesn't come from an app, but from the last, I think it's about 19, like 16 years now that I have of weekly measurements of my body. There is different things that I did over time, but as far as like weight, body fat, water content, and so on and so forth, with the body fat scales, at certain times DEXA scans, but the measurements as well. So on a weekly basis, I have my shoulder, arm, like bicep, chest, waist, stomach, hips, thigh, right? And I've got these in a simple sheet. There's no app or anything like that. And I've got charts all set up that enables me to see, and I'm able to look back over time and see when I was at my best when it comes to the different measurements. And also it's just really nice to be able to look back on and go, yeah, that was when I really, really took hold of it. Like there was this moment in early 2018 where I was in the worst shape that I'd been in. And I remember like walking past a window in Mexico City where I was living at the time, and I had a bit of a gut coming out. I'm like, dude, get your stuff together, man. And I just went on this real trajectory of really diving that down. I've never gotten close to getting back to where I was at that time. And yeah, it's been really, really beneficial, because with data comes objective information.
Yeah.
And objective information enables for changes to be not just, oh, maybe I'll try this or maybe I'll try that. It's like, no, you know what to do. You know what to do at this point, right? And I could see that happening here as well, is that there becomes these mechanisms that they could utilize to be able to make the changes that are required.
Yeah.
One other question I've got in regards to that, I just had a thought about when I was going through those moments in 2018, what I had, and I'm a massive believer in the power of alternatives. What I mean by that is that, okay, if I'm going to eat a bag of potato chips, well, I need to have a number of alternatives available to me to do something different, right? To adapt the behavior. It's not just about becoming aware of something. That's an important step. It's the important first step. But then there's what do you actually do with that? As from an emotional intelligence standpoint, it's regulation, right? Emotional regulation. So I had these 7 different things. It was like go for a swim, green smoothie, go for a walk, play the piano, so on and so forth. And I gave myself permission that, okay, if you still feel like that bad food after doing that, rock on, go for it. So I gave myself some flexibility. I found myself after doing something and doing the alternative, it was very, very minimal amount of times that I'd want to actually do something negative for myself. So is there within what you have planned different alternatives that someone might have that they could maybe plug in to the system to say, well, you know what, when I'm experiencing this kind of stress, these are the 5 things that tend to work for me, when you can then make it individualized for that specific person.
Yeah, that's a very, very good thing. Like I said, it's the user experience is still work in progress, and that's we build a sort of the neuroscience layer, the biomarkers, and a very simple initial user experience for the real-time intervention, and also for the history, for looking back at the history and correlate with your life event and see how different periods stressed you out, and when maybe through major life transition you can look back, or when you went through, say, a meditation retreat, or you did something good for yourself, you see how that impacts your nervous system. I'm a true believer of what you're saying. I love how you define the alternatives. It's really cool. I did the same thing with. I like to eat. By the way, I'm Italian, so I like to eat good food. Yes. And so
food is so good. It is so good, isn't it?
It's so good. And so one of the things I completely cut alcohol from my diet, and I realized that I actually can eat more now, because I never really enjoyed alcohol.
How long's it been?
2 years.
2 years.
I haven't drank any single drop of alcohol.
For me, it was February 1st, 2011.
Oh, wow.
So it's like bit over 15 years now.
Amazing.
Very similar. Yeah. I'd rather get my calories from eating a great piece of food than it just feels like wasted calories now.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It really does. We're on the same page with that. So, yeah.
But to your point, this part of what's on the roadmap for the mobile app, like being if somebody's stressed, you can't just tell them you're stressed, right? You're gonna make him more stressed. So you need to come up with tools or ways to bring him back to the present without making people even more stressed. And that's the feedback you get from many people. Some wearables make me more nervous, more anxious. So that's why user experience is everything. And now with LLM, when you start combining biomarker with your contextual data,
yes,
you can provide a much richer and personalized experience through the wearable. So that's why now it's a great time to build wearables because of the LLM and the power of AI.
That individualized experience, that personalized experience, as you were sharing, I think, that is going to be so incredibly important because, and I almost imagine like in the app, one, being able to see, okay, these are the 5 different things that, okay, when I'm stressed or when it's this kind of stress, and being able to just go bang, 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 it's like breath, meditate, play some music, go for a walk, whatever those other things are, have a drink of water, whatever it is. And being able to do those, but then being able to look back and you say, well, you know what? Yeah, I really, really enjoy the breath part, but actually, if I just take a moment and just go for a walk around the block, that does much more for reducing my stress than the breath does, even though I might have subjectively believed that the breath was actually better. And so that individualized experience, the personalized experience, I think that would be really, really beneficial. And then I wonder, like, when it comes to the personalization, some people would love a bit of tough love, right? Others, it's going to be the complete opposite. Like that's going to, again, make them more stressed.
Yeah.
You imagine like the AI coach going, dude, chill the fuck out, right? It's like, for someone else, it's like, just breathe. Like a really soft voice. Like Brittany, my beautiful wife, she has an amazing voice, and the meditations are so beautiful. Like for anyone, like check those out. They're amazing. And it's one of the reasons I fell in love with her in the first place was the sound of her voice. And, but that calming collective, that's going to be beautiful for somebody else, right? Whereas somebody else, it might be the complete opposite. How do you go about thinking about that and how you're going to build that out?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of AI, right? It's like even ChatGPT has a very similar feature. You can adapt the voice based on your preference. You can have more like tough love, and you have more like sweet. I typically prefer like the more kind ones. Compassionate.
I think I'd go in waves, right? Sometimes like, get the fuck up, man. Like, get your shit together. Whereas other times, like, it's going to be okay, man. Like, you've got this. Come on, let's go, right?
But so that's already configurable. It's part of the personalization. We do have already in the app some self-reports you can do, and you can start logging. When you go for a walk, when you're more excited, when you're more stressed, and so you can start logging all that. But the personalization is everything, and like I said, it's going to be a journey of keep improving the user experience, but it has to be personalized, and it's just like also in day-to-day life, right? Like it's really hard to say, that he's a good therapist. It's just different people resonate with different therapists or different coaches in different ways, right? Because it's a very individualized experience. And so the goal is to sort of approximate that type of experience also with an AI coach.
Yeah. How do you go about thinking about integrations with other pieces of hardware and wearables where you're able to maybe, for example, the Oura Ring, being able to bring that in, how it correlates with the amount of sleep that you got the night before, for example, and how much stress you're exhibiting the day after? How are you going about thinking about integrations?
Yeah, I think that's really the future of wearable. And Oura is also becoming a platform, essentially. So they just integrated metabolic health along with the cardiovascular health and sleep through the continuous glucose monitoring device. Apple has been doing for a really long time, and other platform are doing the same thing. And so what's missing, the missing piece of the puzzle, if you wish, is really the mental health. Right now it's done through subjective self-reports. And like you said before, what we're bringing is the objectivity on being able to measure mental health, which right now, up until now, has been a very subjective measure, like how stressed you are on a scale 1 to 10, right? And we're bringing objectivity to the measurement. And so the future of wearable is going to be, combination of looking at your body and mind in a holistic way by looking at biomarkers that track your cardiovascular health, your metabolic health, and your mental health all together.
There's going to be objective data. There is objective data now. Then there's also going to still be, I would think, still see some subjective data, right? Because, okay, there is stress levels, but at least at this point in time, it's unable to determine, is that because of me feeling depressed? Is it because I'm feeling anxious? Is it because I've got some big thing coming up and I'm concerned about it? Are there differences with the EEGs when it comes to the brainwaves? And it sounds, I think from earlier you said that there is, where you can determine, okay, whether somebody's excited versus a bad kind of stress. Is there a difference between those two? And is there a way, or will there be a way to be able to determine whether somebody's feeling a level of depression versus anxiety, for example?
Yeah, so there is these biomarkers of the valence. It tells you if an affect is a positive or a negative.
Yeah.
You can get the two extreme ones where you're constantly anxious, and so you're in a very high arousal state. You're constantly hyper aroused, and that's not good, right? Because you're constantly anxious. Or the other one where you're constantly calm, and that's not good as well. There is this concept of hormetic stress, this sort of sweet spot, and it's the best comparison is like when you go to the gym. If you lift too heavy weights, now you're gonna break your muscles. If you lift too little weights, now you're not gonna exercise your muscle. There is an optimal level of stress you can impose to your muscles to build your muscles, right? In the same way is our brain, right? There's this optimal level of stress where you keep stressing over time, but it's not bad stress. It's more like being in a flow state throughout the day, and you can operate in the optimal zone, be very productive. And so having that optimal level of stress to keep exercising your mental abilities.
So then can we determine the difference between, let's just use those two, anxiety and depression? Mm-hmm. Is there a way to track that, or is that going to need to be a subjective reporting that occurs when, okay, these specific brainwaves and maybe a notification comes up and it says, are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling depressed? Are you feeling something else? And then maybe it's like a selection of that. So then it's either learning, so that then they sees, okay, that specific brainwave for this specific type of person is very likely going to be this type of emotion. How do you go about thinking about that, and what is possible with that?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to underline that we're not a medical device, so we're not detecting anxiety or depression. So we are a wellness wearable. So it's purely for wellness. So we do detect your biomarkers, and we provide insights to the person. Now, we cannot provide a diagnosis, whether that's anxiety or depression. We cannot also provide any treatment because it's not a medical device. So we provide insights of trends that very likely will take you in a certain state if you keep pursuing those trends or not, basically.
Yeah. Gotcha. How did you, maybe this question, why do you care about this?
Why? Okay. Yeah. Well, my life was a journey. So it's been quite a journey. So up until 7 years ago, I was really stressed out and started realizing the incredible power of meditation. I've been practicing meditation for the last 7 years. Just like you said before, it completely resonated with me. It's like a small adjustment. Like it doesn't feel you're changing, but the level of anxiety is dramatically reduced over the course of 7 years. It's incredible what meditation does to you. Just incredible. And many other mental wellness intervention. I'm very curious. I like to play with a lot of different instruments, and some instruments work in certain periods of my life. I keep exploring all the time, right? So it's been a journey. And the story that I like to tell is that I was stressed out and overweight, and I got myself an Apple Watch, start tracking my calorie burn, motivating me to exercise more. Lost 40 pounds in 12 months. And so I got fit, but I was still stressed. And so coming out of a 10-day silent meditation retreat, I got this idea, what if I could lose 40 pounds of stress? How do I even measure it? And I realized that none of the wearable can really give me that real-time feedback on my stress biomarkers. So that's why I decided to Build AWEAR. So AWEAR is a tool to empower individuals to take control of their own mental well-being. For me, it was a long journey. Try different types of meditation, different type of coaching, different type of techniques, neurofeedback, and like even just getting to start a journey was a journey on its own, right? Because if you know you are overweight, right, you have a scale in your house, you measure yourself, and you have the ability to see, oh yeah, like look back in the history, maybe a year ago I was not, I didn't weigh this much, right? So you can compare things. And likewise for your calorie burn and many other things, right, that describe your body. There's nothing like this about your mental health. And so the journey becomes much more subjective, much more messy, much more uncertain. And so I wanted to build a tool that people can anchor to and start tracking their progress in whatever journey they're doing. Either doing life coaching, or they're doing psychedelics, or they're doing meditation, prayers.
Right.
Religions is another incredible intervention as well on its own. And so I wanted to build a tool that people can anchor to, because I didn't have that.
Yeah.
And I saw an impact wearable had on my general well-being. There was the missing piece of the puzzle, which was the mental health.
Yeah. Where was your stress coming from?
Work. Yeah.
Yep. Just work.
Just work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too much work, or too many? Like, what was going on there, and how did you then work through that?
I was very hard on myself. I lacked of self-compassion, and that was one of the biggest findings in my life. Like the moment you start being more self-compassionate, start loving myself more.
So you recognize that about 7 years ago, or how long ago did you notice that was there? And
yeah, I still remember the moment. Actually, it was a meditation teacher who started talking about self-compassion, and I had no idea what that meant. That was like the first step to a big change. That was like the first moment, one of the first moments where I realized how important that is. Self-compassion. Yeah.
Where did that stem from? Was there a loathing that would occur, or just not feeling that you were good enough? What was the story that you were telling yourself up until then?
Yeah, basically not good enough.
Not good enough.
I mean, not good enough. I can be better, and be very hard on myself, like criticizing myself with things would not go well, and taking days, like you said before, and then try to start shrinking those times, like taking days, like you fall and then to stand up again, it would take days, right? And then you start shrink. Okay, let's do like 4 days, and let's do 3 days now. The more I discover this power of self-compassion, the more I start healing. Automatically the byproduct I had is that time would start shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And of course, it's a journey, just like you said. It's a life journey, right? I think our traumas, we can heal from our traumas, but something is always going to be there, right? And you need to keep working on it. And I think that it's part of the beauty of life, right? It teaches you to be humble and to keep becoming the better version of yourself day to day.
Well, I think there's different stimuli that we're exposed to throughout our lives, right? And just because you can handle something in a certain situation doesn't mean you can handle it in a situation that hasn't happened yet, hasn't occurred. And I remember there was a client I had many years ago now, and it wasn't until she moved into a leadership role, and there was this general manager role that she moved into, that she realized this unconscious limiting pattern of behavior that had just been lying dormant there she was I think she was probably in her 50s, I think, from memory. So it's a number of years ago. So for her entire life, basically, this has just been laying dormant until all of a sudden you're exposed to something new. And the key there is that there's nothing wrong with you in those moments. It is that you've simply become aware of something new about yourself that you didn't realize was there. And it's an opportunity for you to work through that. Usually what will happen is that we push things down underneath the surface until a point where we're ready to actually deal with them. And all of a sudden something gets presented. It's like, hey, you ready to deal with it yet? Similar to like the self-compassion piece with the meditation teacher. It's like, hey, are you ready to deal with this now? It's like, yeah, maybe I am. Whereas there might have been specific moments in the past that you had the opportunity to develop that ability, but maybe weren't quite ready for it yet. So do you know and understand where that came from originally?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing? Or
from my childhood?
Yeah. Was there a specific moment that occurred?
It was a period of my life, yeah, definitely, like elementary school for sure. It wasn't easy. It was like a type of teaching that wouldn't apply to current days. Like was very type of unforgiving type of
Right.
teaching. I don't have any anger towards my teacher. I'm sure he went through a tough time during World War II in Italy. So. But I think that's why I think the first 10 years of your life are so critical.
Yeah.
Because it's basically all amygdala. It's the limbic system that is acting. Your prefrontal cortex is not fully formed. You're incapable of self-regulating your emotions. So you're basically taking this massive amount of traumas during those times, right? And of course, there's also other trauma, like you said, during the rest of your life. But those first 10 years are the most critical one that shape you for pretty much the rest of your life. But here's the beautiful thing, and that's discovered the last few years: the neuroplasticity. It's something real. The ability of your brain to self-heal, if you want to, if you're doing the step to do that. It's true that our neurons keep dying through our lifespan, but the amount of neural connection can actually multiply, and that's the magic of our brain. We can actually get smarter and smarter and smarter as we age if we keep exercising. It's like, again, going to the gym, keep exercising our muscles. So self-healing and neuroplasticity is real, and I've experimented that on myself.
Yeah.
And it's a journey. It's a continuous journey of self-healing, and then. You mentioned something about, discovering things about yourself. And sometimes you do it. Initially, I was doing a lot by chance, by, living certain moments and then realizing that they were tracing back to some old traumas, right? And then you can also do intentionally, which is really beautiful, through coaching, psychotherapy. It really becomes a fascinating, like I think the human psyche is the most fascinating journey ever. I like to describe like the Divine Comedy of Dante, and when you start going through Inferno, Purgatorio, and Heaven, Paradise, it's basically that. It's the journey through your psyche. And once you deep dive into all those layers of the psyche, you go back, you get to the root cause of what's causing certain reaction in real life. And so as you connect emotionally to those reactions, you start understanding why certain things happen in your life. It's a fascinating journey, and I'm addressing it. I'm living it with a lot of curiosity, and the more I do it, the more I heal. The better I feel, the happier I feel, the more productive and focused I feel, because now I can stay focused on solving real problem instead of keeping my mind busy with a lot of clutter and noise, basically.
Yeah. Do you feel good enough now?
I feel good. I feel good.
It's work in progress, right?
It's work in progress. Yeah, that's the part of it. And and even just giving yourself the forgiveness, which I was not good at doing. Like I said, when I travel, my habits, they go down the drain, like meditation habits especially. And I know, and I just forgiving myself, like, okay, it's okay. You're traveling, you're jet lagged,
Right.
but just bringing the awareness of, okay, I'm traveling, therefore I'm not in as grounded of a state as I am when I do my daily routines.
Yeah.
So I think that's also part of the journey, just loving myself, loving ourselves for who we are in that moment.
Yeah. Well, I think the curious thing for folks who are listening to this, as we utilize different wearables, whether it is the AWEAR, whether it's Aura or Whoop or any other device, like they are signs. They're showcasing where it is that you sit, and they sit right at the surface. Right, it's right at the surface. It's okay. Let's use sleep as an example. Well, if you're not dedicating enough time to sleep, then why is that? If you know that it's important, or maybe you don't know it's important, in which there's a whole piece to go through there. But if you're not valuing it enough, then there's something that's going on there that means that you're not dedicating enough time towards that. Same from a mental health standpoint when it comes to this wearable, as an example, which again, I'm really excited to see more of and see where this goes, is as those markers become an awareness piece, is to be able to deep dive down, because they're coming from somewhere. And as we established the examples here, I'm exactly the same. Plenty of stuff from childhood. One in particular that I'll share, there's a number of them. One of them, there was a relationship that I was in many years ago. At the end of it, I remember saying to her, I can't give you what you need. And I know that something's missing, but I don't know what it is. And I remember I was bawling my eyes out. I was sharing this because I had no idea. And it wasn't until I went through some massive, like, transformational stuff that I went through around what we're talking about here, of understanding where those patterns of behavior came from in the first place. And there was something that happened early in my childhood that led me to believe that it wasn't okay to feel certain emotions. And so I blocked out feeling and experiencing certain emotions. And it made me, in that relationship, completely emotionally unavailable, because I didn't know how to access it. Wasn't there was anything wrong with me necessarily, as I learned later, even though I thought there was at the time. But it wasn't until going through that understanding and then developing the skill sets to be able to actually feel these things. Right. And I had this massive breakthrough moment. This is what can happen when you go through different forms of therapy, and there's many different types that we can go through. But I remember there was this moment after I'd had this massive breakthrough and this aha moment, because in that relationship, what was crazy is that while I was emotional in the moment where we split, I basically then just blocked out everything. And so after that, I almost didn't feel the feeling of missing her. Didn't feel that emotion because of, again, something from childhood where I just would just push it down. And it was crazy, this moment. It would have been in 2011, I think it was. I'd moved to Melbourne in Australia at the time. And I just went to bend down. It was after this big transformation that I went through. Went to bend down next to this little rebounded trampoline to pick something up. And I don't know what happened, like, in my brain, but there was this rush of emotion of missing her. And it wasn't that I wanted to be back with her. I knew that it wasn't a fit based on some other things as well. But it was like all of a sudden there was this accessing of this crazy amount of emotion that I didn't know how to access before, which was why it was a wild thing to experience. I ended up calling her to apologize and just being honest and being open. And she'd moved on and all of that. And I think that call was maybe a little bit more for myself than it was that maybe she needed at the time. I think she'd, again, hopefully moved through that and moved on to a better person in there than I was at the time. But it was just this beautiful, heartbreaking experience. And I remember writing this song afterwards, and it had the lyrics in it. I'd rather feel empty than feeling nothing at all. So I hold this all so closely to my heart. And it was this feeling, as I was playing the song, I was feeling the feeling and desperately wanting to push it away because it felt so unfamiliar. It felt so uncomfortable, and yet wanting to pull it so much closer at the same time, because finally I could feel that thing that I had pushed down for so long. Mm-hmm. And that's the power of going through transformation. It's the power of understanding ourselves at a deeper level that enables us to become a greater version of ourselves. Because, boy, like, since that time over the past 14, 15 years has just the incredible amount of transformation that's occurred.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing these stories. Incredible. Yeah, I can resonate with a lot of that. Yeah.
We all have our journeys, right? We all have it. No matter who the person is, no matter how they might seem to have stuff together, there's always different things that we're going through. We each have different experiences. So, what are you hopeful for with the app and with maybe more broadly mental health in general? Because it is a massive issue, and it's, as it seems, with the studies, getting worse.
Yeah, it's getting worse. Also coming out of COVID, there was a big toll on on everyone, really. But also, technology.
Technology is a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's getting us more and more disconnected. My hope is, first of all, to be able to objectively really measure it. Why do we accept so well conditions that are related to our body, but not to our mind? We have so much stigma around mental health still today.
Yeah.
There's still many people that are ashamed to say, "Oh, I'm doing therapy." Or,
why do you think that is?
Well, it's our society, our culture.
Right.
It's a historical thing, I think. There is part of it. There's a lot of shame. There's part of it is related also to the fact that when you're experiencing, if you have like a heart issue, there's not much shame around that, right? There's the pain of it, of course, but there's no shame related to it. And when it's with your mind, which is, if you look at it from a medical standpoint, like it's basically neural connections that are not formed well, right? And what all these mental health interventions do to us is they rewire our brain, right? And so that's the beauty of it, is like acting on your mind to have a physiological result on your brain. It's literally new neural connection. It's like a ski slope, right? If you do the same slope over and over again, then you're always going to get the same results, right? And then after a day of skiing, there's a snowstorm and completely covers up the trail, and now the next day the skiers start tracing new trails, and that's our brain works the same way. So it's like having a snowstorm through any type of mental wellness intervention, and start tracing new neural path that allow your amygdala to be regulated faster by our prefrontal cortex, to not be as reactive. And so the problem, I think, with mental health, in addition to the cultural aspect of it and the stigma that's been created around it, is also the fact that, when my dad had a Parkinson, and towards the end of his life, his brain wasn't functioning well, and therefore also, the way he was relating with us, right, was odd. You lose memory, you lose the ability to communicate effectively. And so that also feels awkward, I think. So part of the stigma also comes from that, is like, why are you talking this way? And it was actually very hard for me to accept that in my dad, because he was an incredible speaker. So there is a combination of that. If you have any other body injury, maybe you can still talk, you can still, communicate easily, but when it comes to your mind and your brain, you look different in a way, right? And so I think the first step is accepting that difference, and also believing that difference, that condition might actually be healed. There's another really critical thing about mental wellness and I think that's why the objective measurement is critical here. Because if you are burnout, it's really hard for the individual to even take the first step to go to a psychiatrist or to a psychologist, or sometimes to a neurologist. It's really hard because your mind is not functioning well, right? So if there is a condition with our body, it's our mind objective or trying to evaluate what happens to our body. But when our mind is trying to evaluate what happens within our brain, that's what becomes really hard. It becomes hard for the individual to take the first step to go and try some mental health intervention. It becomes hard for their family, because oftentimes associated to paranoia. So it's a much more complex, and I think that's why it's a much bigger problem. And the hope is that once you start bringing up more objectivity into that, and especially instead of waiting until you're degenerated completely into burnout or depression, maybe if you start measuring yourself and do baby steps to keep adjusting the course of that ship that you said, like every day, maybe that's a great prevention to avoid that chain reaction.
Yeah.
So I think there's a combination of things that I think makes mental health such a big issue.
this device, for example, and other things as they come out, the ability to be able to, like you said, track, ideally then enables you to measure the difference that occurs when you make the adjustments. And once we've got that all of a sudden becomes an objective piece of data for how I can improve my performance, for example. Yeah. All of a sudden, it's a performance improvement measurement. For me, at least, thinking about it in that way, or, feeling better about ourselves, whatever the thing is that somebody's wanting to have as an outcome. But especially on the performance side, when we see it within a sporting space, is that the mental game is so incredibly important. Yeah. So incredibly important. And the more we're able to track that, the better. And the more we're able to continue, for those listening, for ourselves, to continue getting back to, again, the core as to why something's happening in the first place. And that's where the monumental change can occur. And there's nothing wrong with you. There's simply patterns of behavior that are playing out that are either allowing you or not allowing you to get the results that you want. And if they're allowing you to get the results you want, rock on, keep going, keep doing it, right? And if it's not, then you have the opportunity to change that. And this is where I wonder, is there going to come a time where we're able to measure how neuroplastic our brains actually are? Mm-hmm. And is there going to be a simple way to be able to do that in the future, that when we make changes, like, I think it would be just fascinating to witness it. And maybe there's certain devices, medical devices that can do that already, but the cost, you've got to go into a lab, for example. But like being able to witness, like when I made this change, I look at these neural pathways, because from a reinforcement standpoint, I'm, damn, look at my brain, go brain, go, right? So all of a sudden, like, I'd want to lean massively into that. Like I've noticed the massive change that I've experienced. I've noticed it within my clients. I've noticed it within those folks. And it's been, it's subjective in a lot of ways. There's been objective because of the outcomes that it's achieved, but then there's, do you think we'll get a chance to a way of measuring that?
Many of them are already measurable, actually.
Really?
Professor Robin Carr-Harris, UCSF, is a neuroscientist at UCSF. We are collaborating with him.
Yep.
And he developed this metric called entropy, basically measure the amount of neural activities in your brain and how that correlates with the psychedelics experience. And so it's in a way, it is a measure of neuroplasticity, if you wish. It's like when you're under the effects of psychedelics, there's many more neural connections that happen. And so that's why under some compounds, you see a lot of more clarity. You're able to make connection faster. Your brain becomes much more neuroplastic. And so then you can improve that through different interventions for rewiring your brain. But so there are already metrics, and EEG is one of the technologies has been used to study that. So, and I think there's going to be more and more. And now, if you bring that to a consumer product, I think it's fascinating amount of things that you can see, because in the moment you can see how different activities actually are completely rewiring your brain.
You mentioned psychedelics again there, of that test going on right now. I think that makes way for regulation to occur. And because obviously, in certain cases right now, depending on where you are in the world, it's still seen as a drug that is outlawed and not allowed. And yet some of these psychedelics, I know for me, like, it's been the last few years I've had some of those psychedelic experiences, and I'd gone completely away from, I had my party days back in the day, which was a completely different way of approaching this now. Now it is from an evolutionary standpoint for me of how do I become even more extraordinary version of myself. And through some of these experiences, I'd be fascinated to have, a device to be able to track what's actually going on during that time, because some of my best ideas over the last number of years has come through those experiences. Some of the most impactful insights have come through those experiences, and new levels of understanding, where I thought previously my thinking was I have to do it all on my own. And, with the help of whether it's a coach or workshops and stuff like that. And that's still a big part of it. And there is this part as well that I think we're going to discover and uncover why for thousands of years these were incredible medicines. And I'm excited to see, again, just what we're able to track and measure when it comes to, like you said, neural activity and what that means for the plasticity of the brain. How, are we able to, in those moments, change, not only become aware because there's more neural activity and ability to be able to maybe access certain parts of the brain? That's definitely how it feels to me, is like feeling of accessing a part of my brain that I didn't have access to before. That it's like, okay, like if we're going to be able to witness, oh yeah, that's because this part of the brain and all of a sudden this neural activity came in there. I'm just fascinated by that stuff. So this has been a great conversation. What are you most hopeful for?
Solving the mental health crisis that we're in. I think I'm very hopeful about that. Yeah.
I love it. We have a rapid fire segment on the show here called Your Edge. I've got the 3 pieces: values, beliefs, and habits. So number 1 question, what's your number 1 value and why?
Curiosity. Why is because it allows me to keep challenging myself, keep learning from myself, becoming a better version of myself, and keep learning new skills, new things, be curious about other people, see what I can learn from them, what I can teach to them, hopefully, but especially what I can learn from them. And I think curiosity has been always a constant thing in my life, and curious also in mental health. Like the reason why I embraced this journey of self-healing was because of curiosity, ultimately. It was my curiosity to take the first step to do something about it.
Has it grown over time? Your level of curiosity?
I think so. Especially, it's actually multiply exponentially after starting this journey in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
It's just like it completely opened up my views and my approach to life.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm very, very similar with back in 2017, I sold everything that I owned and went on this big journey around the world. And yeah, the level of, I realized the crazy power of curiosity, and that curiosity tends to feed on itself, but only if it's given enough space to breathe. You have to be allow it to open you up and to explore. And the beautiful thing about curiosity is that it's, the way I see it, is kind of like the bridge between where you are and where it is that you want to be. And you can dance and play along that bridge and come up with different options and different solutions, because the reality is that all of the solutions to the challenges that we're experiencing right now currently live in the unknown. They can't live anywhere else. And so curiosity is almost that bridge between the reality of right now and the unknown, which is where all of the solutions are. And so the better we can get at bridging that gap and connecting, the better off we're going to be. So I love that that's it's been a big one for you. What's a belief that's really shaped who you've become, whether it be a belief about yourself, about others, or about the world?
If I can self-heal, then I can do anything. It's just the more I feel that the more I heal myself, the more I heal my wounds, the better version of myself I become, and the more I realize that the sky is the limit. It's basically I can do anything. Anything. Like I embrace this journey of mental wellness. I don't have a neuroscience background, and I don't have a psychology background. Right. I'm passionate about psychology and neuroscience, but I'm an engineer basically. And yet I completely switched in the last 3 years into something about mental health, and it is very close to me. And I think you can do anything. The core is really self-healing and the self-compassion and self-healing, and then you can do anything.
Yeah. What I love about that belief is there's an action associated with it. Whenever I'm going through this, in whether I'm delivering talks or privately with clients, is that if you can build an action that's associated with the belief system itself, it enables you to take responsibility for getting the outcome you're wanting. So if the anything is possible, if there's at any time now that you feel that something's not possible, then you've got an action you can take, which is self-healing in this case. That's the solution. And then go, okay, because then there's a responsibility that can be taken. Okay, if I'm not getting the outcome I want, if I feel like I'm out of my depth here, if I feel like this is not possible, if I feel like I'm not good enough, it's like, oh, let's go and do some self-healing then. Like, what is it that I need to understand about myself? What is that I need to uncover about myself in order to be able to feel unstoppable again, to feel like anything is possible? So I love that you've got that, because it's every single time where when I'm reshaping and transforming the belief systems with a client, we're going from these limiting, disempowering belief systems to a more empowered state that actually has an action associated with it. So I love that. What's a ritual, habit, routine, or ritual that you can't live without? And that could be a daily habit, and you could also add in, say, an annual tradition, for example.
Daily routine is meditation for sure.
Nice.
Like I have 20 to 30 minutes meditation, Vipassana meditation before I go to sleep. That's my sleeping pill, my natural sleeping pill, really natural release of serotonin, and I sleep like a baby. I wish I slept longer, but at least the quality of the sleep is solid.
Yeah.
And then I write 3 things. I journal 3 things that I'm grateful for during that day. It's just a simple thing that I read in a book called Oprah Winfrey. I stole it from her, and it was just such a simple thing, and it makes a massive difference. Again, keep adjusting every day, every single day. So that's something I do pretty regularly. Again, when I travel, I'm a little bit less consistent, but those are my daily routine. And I try to spend at least once a year time with my family. So in Italy. So yeah. It's very complex to convince them to come here somehow. So I definitely do like at least one trip a year to Italy to just spend time with my family. Of course, we see each other on FaceTime all the time, and
there's nothing that beats in person, though, is there? It's just there's something about it. It's and making that time, and like you said, it can be complex to bring them here. I love that you make the time for that. I'm very similar with that. It takes 4 flights and more than 30 hours to get back to the farm that I grew up on, where my family is, and being able to dedicate that time and showcase, for me at least, the nieces and nephews back at home, that you can follow your dreams and still make time for the people that matter most for you. You know, and I love that you get that time back with your family. It's important to have in-person experiences. Yeah. It's been a great conversation, man. Where can people go to find out more about AWEAR and anything else you want to do for those who want to connect with you?
Yeah, they can contact me on LinkedIn. AWEAR is the webpage is awaretech.com. So you can learn everything about what we're building, the product we're building, and feel free to contact me on LinkedIn, and happy to answer question or just connect with you and learn from you. And thanks for having me here. This was an incredible conversation. It's awesome. A great way to start my day. I didn't expect this. So, thank you so much.
You're absolutely welcome. This has been a really, really good conversation. I really appreciate you sharing your insights and your wisdom and your vulnerability as well. So thank you. And for those of you tuning in, we'll have everything that was mentioned in the show notes linked at cameronatlas.com/podcast. We've got some great new guests coming up. So make sure you hit that follow button, leave a comment. And until next time, go and write the next line in your story. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode here on The Edge of Possible.